Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Dash Force Free Amigos podcast. I'm joined by my two fellow amigos, Brian. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
And Joel Valenzuela. How's it going, Joel?
Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
And our special guest for today's episode, Joshua, who is a front-end developer for Dash Evolution in the Dash core team. Hi, Joshua.
Mark said I'm special. Hi, guys.
Yeah, extra special. Now, Joshua, we spoke about the
open mic.
The Dash Evolution Demo 1 video release last Friday, but it was completely fresh. So what's the feedback been for you like this week? Because you was directly involved in not only recording that video, but narrating it, and you was at the heart of that presentation and the demonstration. So what's been your takeaway from that so far?
Well, I think people were really excited to see what we've been working on, and people have been very positive in terms of the reception. There have been kind of like a hunger from the community for details. Everyone wants to know, how does it work? How does it change what Dash does and what Dash is like? And what's the next thing? What can we expect? Everybody's kind of really excited. And I think that includes core too. We've been kind of itching to get this stuff out into the public for months now, and now that we've got this defensive patent, we can talk a little more freely, which is really nice.
Excellent. So we can ask you anything.
I mean, you can ask it. You've always been able to ask anything.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether I get cagey or not.
I saw so many comments on the video, like straight away. I mean, when I watched that video, I said, Josh was going to have to forgive me because I actually said this in the after party last Friday, but most people probably didn't hear this. But after I watched that video, it kind of changed. I feel like Dash is moving into a new chapter with the whole contract.
Oh, yeah.
I never even thought about Dash in smart contracts terms before. I really want to talk to you about the DApp generator as well in the scheme of things. That's great.
Yeah.
But let's, just for the viewers, I'm guessing you read through some of those comments. Was there any criticisms or questions that anyone asked in the comment section that kind of made you think, oh, I've not thought about that before? Or was there any sort of like common comments that just kept coming up that you feel that you need to address?
Oh, sure. So I think the most common concern that people have is if you have an open platform where the trusted part of it happens in your wallet and you are not sending things into other people's user spaces. We can go over like the quick explanation again for people if we need to, but in the demo, we talk about user spaces where in Evolution, you have like a space that you control, and when you interact with dApps, it puts data into that user space. And once people thought about that a little bit, they realized that that there are certain things that are visible and certain things that are hidden. And so people really wanted to know, like, what's visible, what's hidden, how open is this? And there were some concerns about how open the contact system is. So right now, the security compares to like PGP email if there was no network security at all. So like everybody sees the emails going around and you can see to and from, but you have no idea what the contact details are, what kind of changes being made.
PGP is pretty secure. I mean, it worked for Edward Snowden, right?
Sure. But you can tell who people are, who somebody is making a contact with or which contact they're updating. You just can't tell what the change is. Mm. So there is some security. We're thinking really hard about how to add more security. But, this is a similar kind of problem to the sort of thing that causes us to need stealth addresses in Bitcoin back when, if you remember when privacy coins were new, everybody wanted to find a way to send funds to somebody without revealing who it was from. And stealth addresses are like this super, super grindy way to do it, where the person who's receiving the funds just has to look at every transaction and try to decrypt it. And if it doesn't work, that's not the one. And so it's a lot of work, right? That kind of difficult problem is the same problem you're trying to solve. As far as I can tell, it's the same problem you're trying to solve when you try to obscure these connection details, because all the connection details are kind of like public keys where they're just out there for people to see.
Well, I was reading in the section there, and Alex Warner typed or I think that's how you say his last name.
Mhm.
He had chimed in, and people were talking about how it wasn't private, and he had said something about, or somebody said something about, well, it's not going to be totally private for like 1 year. It's going to be like a next year before everything will be totally private. Well, is that what he was talking about? What you're talking about, or is that different?
Well, I don't know the timeline for adding like extra encryption and privacy in, but I know that for the prototype, we have not put any effort into like obscuring things. Even the HD keys that you send to contracts right now in the prototype are just HD keys, because our focus for the prototype is just to get everything to function. But we have plans for adding encryption for things like HD keys and different, basically the details, the part of an email that gets encrypted, the body of the email. We have a mechanism for a plan for like an architecture for how to do that part.
I think he was talking about maybe the names that you were able to see them, but I think, like you said, you're not able to see what's going on. You're able to see that something's going on.
Right. I'd have to talk to Andy more and other team members more to understand like whether we've cracked the encrypting the to and from part.
Yeah, whatever he was saying, he said it's going to be about a year before it was totally private, is basically what he said in the comment section.
If I understand that correctly, is that with evolution, are you using a agile methodology? So it's going to be a continuous thing, right? And with that, you don't roll out everything on day one. There's a reason why you do that, right? Is that my understanding?
The agile methodology we've adopted isn't just for evolution. It's just that the Dash team has scaled up to a point that we need some more formal organization than we've had. And so agile is just a way that kind of we can coordinate our work. We did start doing agile around the same time as evolution, though. And part of that is that you don't get as much focus on like hitting the deadlines, even if it means burning yourself out. Agile recognizes that development is a creative process and timelines kind of stretch a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it was an amazing video, really opened my eyes. And for most people, they just wanted a little sneak peek of just what was going on. But really, the takeaway from that was that now we understand that when we've had developers and Dash Core come on the Free Amigos and they're trying to describe Dash evolution, they struggle, not because they're trying to hold stuff back. It's just because it's so heavily dependent on the developers building stuff on top. It's hard to know what the end finished product's like because it's unlimited potential, endless possibilities. So really it's up to the developers to do it. And now we understand why that SDK and developer documentation is so big. And the one thing I think that you actually highlighted in the video was the DApp generator, because I don't think it would be unfair for me to say that a large portion of that demonstration video is kind of catered to the developers that will be utilizing the potential and unlocking the potential of Dash Evolution. So some of the terminology that was used, I want to kind of break down for just everyday people from in the community and perhaps people not new to Dash. So Chuck likes to use the schemas and stuff like, which is kind of like the skeleton. But I would like, for outsiders, would I be right in describing the DApp generator, which is decentralized application, as a kind of like wizard? So it's a tool. So if you're building an application, you can just, we don't know how it's going to be, right? Whether it's going to be drop down forms or whether it's going to be click and drag and drop, but there's going to be like little things that you can integrate, like, oh, do you need a friends list in your app? Do you need a payment solution? And then like it's just amazing. So I'm sure you've probably thought a lot more into this, but it's just open up Pandora's box for me. So can you just talk a little bit about the DApp generator for me?
Yeah, I think the idea for the DApp generator right now is to be similar to the proposal generator that we have. Basically, it covers the most technically difficult aspects of setting up a new DApp. So that might cover things like generating for you the command that you need to register your DApp with the network. And it might, if you have a schema, which is like a format for the data that your DApp is going to store in mind, it might help you generate that schema. Or if you have a schema, it might allow you to plug it in and get like an empty library and your schema and all this in a zip file with a README that helps. It just kind of puts the bits together for you to start it off. I think it's supposed to be a little bit like if you've made a web page with Bootstrap, there's Bootstrap Skeleton. It's a starting point that lets you develop without having to necessarily understand the stuff you're only going to look at once.
Yeah, nice kickstart. It's nice,
right.
Nice injection.
So
yeah,
let me go on that same thing. So when the developers are building the on the dApps, which I have no idea how all that works, but from what I understand, you can use, and I'm throwing this word out there, I have no idea what it is, the Node.js. I kind of know what it is. So you can use all these different languages, like Ethereum has like the Salinity or something like that. You can only use that. Yeah. So we're going to have ours is going to be way more open. What are all the protocols that you'll be able to use?
Well, at the root, the protocol that we are providing is the SDK that runs on the Masternode network. And theoretically, we could just get that working properly and let everyone else figure the whole rest of it out. People could write things that would interface directly with the SDK, and they would be able to broadcast new transactions, and they would have to work directly with the primitives, the users and the objects and things like that. It'd be very cumbersome. So as far as the SDK, we're providing JavaScript libraries to interact with the raw DAPI SDK. I mean, the raw DAPI, the endpoints on the masternodes. But somebody else could take our JavaScript library and rewrite it in Python or Ruby or C# or anything like that, and it'll work just as well. Think of how you have like Bitcoin J is a library for interacting with Bitcoin blockchain in Java, and then you can clone that to be C++ or C# or whatever. It's just kind of happening at a higher level.
And the SDK, for people who don't, is the software development kit.
Right.
Yeah. So there's some advantages of using for a developer to use Dash Evolution, perhaps over Ethereum. And this was kind of alluded to in the actual demonstration video. So in that, they say if you're doing development within Ethereum, typically you need to build like a test environment, you need to service everything else. So what would be an advantage if you were talking to a developer to say, what are the advantages of building a development or an app on Dash Evolution as opposed to going the Ethereum route? Is there distinct differences and advantages with that?
Yeah, I think that Evolution and Dash dApps bring different strengths to the table. The Evolution dApps in Evolution are really about storing structured data in a secured way against the blockchain. And part of that structured data can also include user-to-user connections and user-to-merchant connections, which interact with Dash primitives that all the different apps can connect to. So if I make an app that has user functions in it, and somebody else has another app with user functions in it, we're using the same kind of user functions. So your contacts, your friends, will work in a similar way across apps, as I understand it.
So you have much less limitations. You'd have more limitations with Ethereum, but with Dash Evolution, you're kind of unlocking the door because you're plugging in, but you can do a lot of the stuff outside it, right? So you've got unlimited potential.
You do have unlimited potential, but also Ethereum and Dash make different promises. In Dash, we allow your application to store data, and as long as the data is formatted correctly and matches the constraints that are in your schema, we'll accept the data. Whereas in Ethereum, the network is doing a great deal more. Like there's a lot of value to having Ethereum doing all these computations and things. It's expensive, but it also, like, the network is really doing a lot for you. And we're providing a different service, a less expensive service, but because we're doing less on the network, things are more open-ended on your side.
Are we going to have more security vulnerabilities because we have all these options, or does Ethereum have more security vulnerability because there's such a new, different thing that they're doing, or is just crazy talk?
In my opinion, the Ethereum system is more complex. But the Dash system has complexity too. It's just, not necessarily inside our network. So maybe the kind of vulnerabilities that people will be most worried about with Dash dApps will be in the client code. I haven't talked to anybody who's done the security modeling approach to this to have a real nuanced opinion on it, though. So I'm looking forward to learning about that too.
Yeah, but it just seems like Chuck was really interesting for me last week. I was talking to him in the after party as well. So if you don't come to our after parties, this is the kind of stuff you miss out on. So let that be a lesson to you.
You missed everything out and you hate Dash, so we'll go with that.
But with evolution, we was talking about ideas, and I was trying to get understanding. So I was talking about application ideas that we could build in evolution. So I was talking about building a open bazaar or integrating something like eBay, especially with the Dash drive. But the DApp generator really took a key focus for me, because that allows people to kickstart, because it essentially gives you a template to go with where you can pull things in to help build up your thing. And he was just saying, but it doesn't stop there, because you can actually, if you were into build like a plugin for invoicing or some kind of reporting, or even like a payment, like little payment solution, you could actually build that and have that as a selection within the the DApp generator. And then you could actually, as an external person, charge people a monthly fee to be able to use the reporting or the invoicing as like an added on service. So like literally you can build platforms within the platform, or you can build services. So like for developers, it's like a wet dream. You can do anything that you want.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so like I got super excited about that. Anyway, so word on the street is that you and Joel are pretty famous this week, because I heard by a little Dicky Bird that you guys were on a Dash documentary.
Who's the fourth guy in the chat? I don't think I met it. I don't think I know who he is. Sorry, I've been spaced. Waiting for the coffee to kick in.
Yeah, so Dash documentary, right?
Yep, I was there till 3 in the morning. Pain in the butt. Yeah. I got a little sick because of it. Compromised my immune system. Damn you, Tom and crew.
What kind of stuff were you recording? Did they have like a preset of questions, or were you just hanging about, or what was going on?
Yeah, so I'll just give them of the thing. They were in Boston saying, hey, I don't think we can make it out today because there's some snowstorm or something, which is turns out widely exaggerated. There's a little pitter of snow that like didn't even stick on the ground, and they're all like, we don't really have snow here in the UK, and that kind of crap. And so anyway, I called them up and I spoke with them. I don't know if Joshua remembers if he overheard, but I was a little bit of a jerk talking to them, saying, basically you're losers if you don't come up here, because this is the kind of stuff you need to be filming. Otherwise, give the masters a refund. It probably came off a little stronger than I could have, but whatever, it worked. And then they came up. It was around 5 in the evening, and we head over to the Free State Bitcoin shop, where they got to see everything, and that was like what set it off for them. They interviewed the student who's working there as well as the owner, and the big thing the big takeaway was there's this big map on the side of it that has a pin for every place around town that takes Dash, and they were like blown away by that. It wasn't like, oh, there's like 1 or 2 or 3 in the greater Los Angeles metro area. It's like, no, it's just like mile radius. You just got everything. You got dozens.
Yeah.
And then that's always obviously very powerful type of a thing. And then we went to a street for dinner, and then they interviewed I believe the manager and a few of the servers. And of course we paid in Dash at the end of that. And then we went to the co-working space called the Praxium, where I work at. And then that's where we started filming the interviews. And Josh went first because he had the furthest to drive. And then Ian, the crazy Scotsman, went second, who's the Dash Drive developer. And his intro was very interesting. He was just saying, I'm Ian Marshall, I'm Dash Drive developer, and I'm apparently a Scot, even though I'm not wearing a kilt right now. And so anyway, and then I went last, and we were done around 3 in the morning. And now they're headed to San Francisco, apparently. But what was your interview like, Joshua? What do you have to talk about?
Well, for starters, I botched the years when I told them how long I've been involved in Bitcoin and Dash. So I've got to do a little voiceover for them with the correct years, because I made it sound like I'm really OG, and I'm not as OG as I sounded. I heard about Bitcoin in 2011, but I didn't start getting into Bitcoin until like mid-late 2013, right before it went up to 1,000 and then drifted down for a year or so.
Yeah, so right when I did, huh?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. And also, like, I name dropped Ron Paul as being like part of my intro to the Liberty movement, but I was into Ron Paul not recognizing the Liberty movement as a thing yet. I just knew that this was a guy with integrity who didn't want to start wars. And I didn't really get into Liberty until I started digging into the
Ron
monetary
Paul
properties.
with my End the Fed t-shirt bought with Dash.
Yeah, that's a sweet shirt.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Well, so getting into the monetary stuff, like what is money and who has the right to control it and this kind of stuff really led me down the Liberty path. Like, I'm sure Ron Paul planted the seeds of let people do their thing and don't, there's no need to bully them around. But like, I didn't really get it until I started looking into money.
Wow. So it seems like they just came to you guys with a complete open book. So they recorded you guys doing transactions. They saw some of the merchants accepting Dash, and then they has a proper sit down with you to ask you a string of questions about hashtag spoilers, about like I guess how you got involved with Dash, what you do.
Well, so
and
when they sat down with us, they said, we're just we want to hear what you have to say. So I told them what were the topics that I wanted to hit on. Yeah. And they kind of filled me in on like during the interview, they would prompt me with the next thing that was on the list. So I'm not used to doing video interviews where I'm talking to somebody and I'm not getting comprehension clues back from them. Like even when you're presenting to a group of people, you can look and you can tell if they're like confused or if they have a question or if they're curious or excited. But when you're talking to a video camera or to a person who's with a video camera, you're not really talking to that person. And they do a good job of just keeping like a flat face so that you're not really talking to them. And that was disorienting for the first 15 or 20 minutes or so. If you do video interviews, you may feel something like that. And that it took me a little bit to settle in. Yeah,
which is interesting. I kind of got a similar thing in our Cambridge presentation where people were, I wouldn't say non-responsive, but not very communicative. And at the end of it, it seemed like they were very into what we were doing. But that's a little bit of a subject change. Yeah, if you want to go to Instagram's Beyond Bitcoin Film, then
they told
the latest
us
post they have was from the street, and you can see this waiter who looks hipster as anything. He's all talking about how he's taken Dash for a long time in tips before the restaurant took it. For payments. And then anyway, very interesting.
What's the website? What's the name of it?
So that was on Instagram. So if you do instagram.com/Beyond Bitcoin Film, all one word.
So Joel,
yes,
this will be the first time that Masternodes have heard in a while about the Dash documentary. So I think they'll be curious to know that. What was your impression of them? Do you think this is a good thing? Because this is probably the first update they've really heard about Dash documentary for a long time. There was a tweet the other day where they did an interview with Ben Swan as well. But what was the feeling that you got for them? Do you think this is going to be a good project? What were the people like? Were they good? Have you got a good feeling about it? Or what were they like?
Pure shite.
No,
I mean, actually, it was really good. Yes, they're a nice professional team, passionate from all. They're definitely. I think Dash is going to get its money's worth based on what they've been able to see, how thorough they've been in, how they've done stuff. And I mean, the very day before, I was spending 3 hours being interviewed by CNN and comparing and contrasting their styles and everything. There's enough that was comparable that you can tell these guys are legit. They know their craft. They know what they're doing. But CNN was just had this. They're people. They're nice people, but what they were going for had a weird kind of robotic, cold corporate vibe. Like it was just to like, let's get some good footage. And the Beyond Bitcoin Film, of course, a completely different venue, completely different format. They seemed to really care. Like they seemed to be very interested in the human stories and involved in it rather than just, so tell me and we'll just record and then figure out how we're going to edit it to make you look like a moron later on. Like it looked like they were they were fans as much as the people they were interviewing were fans. And just having the fan, a industry professional clearly, but having a fan give that perspective is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I think when they first initially put the proposal in, people didn't really know them. They were like new to the community, so people didn't really know what to expect. So there was kind of like a little bit of a leap of faith. But hey, that's probably beautiful news, music to Masternode's ears to hear that they're into Dash. So, and by the sounds of things, Ben Swan, they got you guys, and now sorry, you said they're going to where next?
San Francisco, I believe.
San Francisco.
I'm trying to get them hooked up with the Alt 36 team for when they're in Arizona, because it would be a shame to not get that, especially if Alt 36 turns out to be something very amazing.
Yeah.
And then it's just, you want to have that in the beginning. And I know Ken and Lauren are very interesting pair of people, and so also I'm sort of hoping that, I heard that they're a little bit more familiar with Evan than many of us, and that's the big thing. Is it's like, you know, where in the world is Evan Duffield? It's like we're trying to find where Evan is so we can cram him into the documentary, because you can't have a Dash documentary without Dash's founder, unless someone just sends a bunch of B-roll film of just Evan looking around and like looking up at a butterfly. Just have like narration over that. But it would be much better if you actually just had him in the film.
Mm-hmm.
When is that CNN? You mentioned the CNN. When is that supposed to air? Or have I missed it? Or
A little cagey about saying, but probably next week, maybe a couple weeks. We'll see. They'll let me know on Twitter. Here's the interesting thing, right? Yeah, sorry, keep going.
Well, is it the CNN Money, or is it the CNN like the main channel, or do we know?
So they said they just said CNN. However, the person who reached out to me is a CNN business correspondent. So I would guess it's going to be on CNN Business.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to see it. I think it's well done, Joel.
They put a GoPro on my arm 4 different times when I was paying for stuff, and it was pretty interesting. It felt like overkill. Like, can't you just like be behind me and just film me paying for stuff? But whatever. They got all the fancy money, all the fancy tools.
Yeah, but it sounds like you did a great job. Let's hope they don't spin it in a horrible way. Like, but
here's the thing to realize about this media type thing. First off, I paid at 4 places, and they filmed all of them extensively, and a lot of B-roll footage of me shopping around and stuff like that. And so they're not going to have much to put out there that's not me buying stuff with Dash. Like, there's very little to film. There was a hiccup in the beginning when the point of sale system wasn't loading, because they support Bitcoin Cash as well, and they had some like Bitcoin Cash address upgrade that they just kind of screwed up the whole thing, and then it got fixed, and then it was all fine. But I'm sure like a couple minutes of it's loading and not working kind of thing. Like, there's only so much of that you can spin into something like how terrible this is. Like, they're not going to have much material. And as far as what I was talking about and stuff, I'm one of the reasons why I wouldn't just send some random person without media training to talk to the press. I mean, I've been involved in political nonprofits for years. You know, when I used to intern for the White House under George W. Bush, and there's always some reporter trying to get an intern to say some stupid thing, and there's always a Secret Service agent whispering to your ear, "Don't say anything." And so it's like, I understand like when they ask you a question, and how like there's ways of answering that don't leave leeway for bad interpretations. So I almost think it's like a challenge, right? It's like, why don't you? I encourage you to try to twist my words and make me look like a moron. Like, go for it, try.
Well, hopefully it comes.
It will
out
probably
good
make
anyway.
me look fat.
I hope it's going to be good.
Problem.
But yeah. Oh, I just want to say a big thank you to the community as well. So beginning of last week, I put out like a video on Twitter and Facebook asking for people to help put the message out to merchants to sign up to a form that would be interested in accepting businesses that would be interested in accepting Dash as a payment. And it was really successful. I had over 130 signups, businesses interested in accepting Dash. Over 90 were from Venezuela. And so I have to give a big thank you to Dash Maximalist, who runs the getfreedash.com website, because I believe he used the email listing to help syndicate that message out. Anyway, I got what I needed, and I've passed that on, and now conversations can be had now with quite a interesting POS solution that's already established. So conversations still need to be had, but yeah, I got what I needed and it's looking good. So I hope to update you all with that as soon as possible. So hopefully in next week or the coming weeks, we should have some really good, interesting news.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanted to throw 3 topics that we can go over them however we want. The first one is obviously the crazy proposal cycle we have. Also,
yeah.
the second one would be the privacy stuff that we talked about before. And the third one is the new tip bot that we have. And I think Joel is possibly.
I'm already making it rain in the live chat.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
Goodness.
I already tipped 2 people on Twitter. I did a private send tip as well, which I don't know how that worked out, but you can do a private send tip. Yeah. Be interesting.
So where all is it working? Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Discord?
Yeah, it's got email, Twitter, Reddit, and Dash Nation Discord. So in the actual web wallet interface, you can Dash Nation Discord, and all these things also have live functions. So I'm just doing this all from the web wallet, but you can do this in Twitter. You can do Twitter. Hey, at my Dash wallet tip, can you send someone 0.1 Dash for whatever, and it'll do it right in natively in Twitter, for example. So yeah, this is good stuff. Good timing.
Hopefully they could make maybe a little video or something to make it easy for people to, or is it easy to figure out?
It's kind of easy to figure out. I mean, I just tipped pasta. DJ Crypto wants us to avoid logo discussion. Anyway, sorry.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm yeah, I'm not. No.
Got
No.
The logo thing just made my head go. I'm full of emotion. So I don't know what
I'm ready to vote.
All I need to know is I just want to know if we need to call up Ken Bozak and just say, "Hey, dude, I have some bad news." But anyway, sorry. This is as much logo discussion we're going to do. I want to talk about it as much as possible without actually talking about it. See how long we can keep this up. Well, but anyway, privacy. Brian, why don't you go into that?
This is going to be a good one because I think I may disagree with everybody on this one. Mark, how do you feel about that privacy? So let's give the background about it. I guess I don't know where it came out of. There was
Japan.
Okay, yeah, Japan was one, and then that they're going to ban any kind of privacy coins. And wasn't there talk about it supposedly at the G20? Was that part of it as well?
Yeah, but I think my understanding of the G20, when it actually came out, that the news for cryptocurrency was actually quite positive, and it actually helped the coin market cap markets retrace, because I guess they were expecting like dire comments when it actually turned out to be quite positive. Privacy side, I'm not sure. I don't think Dash has an identity crisis, but it seems like a lot of the masternode owners have clearly been in Dash for a long time, right? From the Darkcoin days where dark send was the main feature, right? So that for us was the bread and butter of Dash, but now we've evolved and our message has changed into kind of like a payments platform solution. And just like with the demo video last week, we're seeing Dash is now moving in another direction. So initially it was like dark send, then we had instant send, Mosco's governance, and now we've got Dash evolution. It's like 360. We could just move it in every direction. Yeah. So it's really interesting times. I've not fully made up my mind. I have confidence in the core team on this, and I think from what we saw in the video last week and the announcement of the defensive patents and stuff, I'm sure they've got our best interests at heart. Now, private send, yes, I do believe that's a really important thing to have, because essentially it's fungibility, right? And that's one of my main selling points when I talk to people. However, at the same time, how often do I actually use it? I don't actually use private send as much as what people think. So
yeah, let me lay out my case and see if y'all disagree. So the thing, I think some of the discussion that I saw, at least in the Masternode only channel, was about shutting the privacy feature off in order to get listed on like Coinbase and be able to work in Japan. And I believe that this is just the first of all the regulation that's coming. I think the United States is going to do more regulation with that and everything else. Now, somebody did bring up about the whitelisting of addresses, which is a great idea. I also would like to get an update on CoinFirm, because that's who we were working with before with the KYC AML stuff. And they're supposed to help us, maybe we can still keep that feature, but we can be compliant with them, and they can do the background and basically whitelist these addresses. So my position would be right now as someone who is part of that 1% who does actively use private send, because I think they said it's only like 1%. My problem with it is I just don't think it's ready for prime time. It's slow. It takes forever to do it. It's just not easy. And when I'm actually using it, like to pay for the Dash Force to send payments out, I always run into denomination errors after like 3 people. Sometimes I can get to 4, and then I get denomination errors. So private send basically quits working. So I have to send all the funds that I've already mixed to another address and then mix them again. And then I'm able to send out to 3 more people. And then I have to repeat that process. So I just don't think it's ready for prime time yet. And I would not have a problem shutting that feature off for a year or even up to 2 years until we get it solid and it's all working. But we definitely should be part of the of Dash, and I also think that'll give us time to grow and get big to the point to where the regulators can't really shut us down. Once we get so big, we can flip it on, and what are they going to do? But right now, it could be very detrimental to us. And I know people, and I think it's very important that the master nodes have this discussion, because people who aren't master nodes, they're not. If you have $30,000 or $40,000 in Dash, yeah, sure, that's a lot. But some of us have millions of dollars in Dash, and I understand people's principles. They're principled on this issue, but some of us have way more at stake, the masternode owners, than somebody who has much less, and they can say, oh, they're going to stick to their principles on this. But even if that feature was cut off, it's still going to be just as anonymous as Bitcoin. And if you're careful, you can do that. And I think when people talk about these principles, if you're careful, you can still use Dash like that. But if if you're going to go into the fiat banking system, then yes, it will expose your privacy, but then your principles are kind of in conflict, I would seem. So I don't buy the whole principled argument, because I think if you use it very carefully, you can still remain anonymous and not violate your principles. But if you want to violate these, principles or whatever, then yeah, you're going to have to interface with the banking system and stuff like that, which would seem to go against those principles that you're primed to protect. End of rant.
Well, I'd like to bring Joel in on this, because I recall having a conversation with him a few weeks back where he was informing me that private send actually may change with Dash Evolution. Now, I guess this is highly dependent on the roadmap, dependent on the priority of that. But Joel, can you recall that conversation? Because it was actually you that was informing me about it. So is it? I don't think they're going to completely rework private send on Evolution from scratch, but the way it functions is going to be different. That's correct, right?
Yeah, so basically what I'm about to do is tell you what Joshua does, what he's going to do, that I apparently know better than he does himself and the rest of the core team. No, but from what I've heard, a few people say it seems like private send is going to be largely the same, but very much streamlined, and the way it's going to work. So this is where I don't quite understand too much, because I'm not that much of a techie, but apparently Evolution will be moving Dash away from wallets communicating with full nodes themselves, that there won't so much be full nodes as there will be kind of like super high powered SPV like clients. And so basically, instead of a full node, like a normal core wallet interacting with all the master nodes, you won't need to have that full node. And so it'll be a lot more streamlined, and there's a bunch of other little tweaks and fixes, and it'll be mixing much quicker and always going, stuff like that. And more front end, from what I've heard, is the sort of branding aspect of it will be much more minimized in terms of you'll have your normal balance and you'll have your cash balance. Your stuff over your cash balance, which will automatically mix and can easily be sent out to and from. So it sounds like it's going to be way improved. Now, I got a couple things on the philosophical end of that. So first off, I don't think it's a psychological. I don't think it's a philosophical problem at all. It's just a basic problem that Bitcoin, and this is what I think about Evan's approach too. I don't know Evan's political beliefs. I don't know mortal enough to have what one calls political beliefs. He's a little bit like above everything in terms of that, a little bit more high-minded than our petty politics. But he saw there was a problem with Bitcoin, that it didn't work well enough, and he sought out to fix it. And that's Dash's entire thing was Bitcoin started this idea of a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and Dash is just finding every way that it's not quite ready for prime time and making it ready for prime time. And then there's a bunch of extra cool stuff on top of that. But one thing is Bitcoin is worse than banking for privacy, right? Bitcoin is extremely transparent. But if I send a bank transfer to someone, the whole world doesn't see that. It's just it's private. It's behind the scenes private. And all the regulations and all the, conformity or whatever you want to call the reporting is still there back end, but front end it isn't. So there has to be something in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin related cryptocurrencies, at least, that makes transactions private. It does. And now what people say, no one can see it. No one has a problem with financial privacy. No one has a problem with that. And that's a wrong discussion of, privacy's wrong. No. What people are saying when they don't like these anonymous is they're saying that they don't like that no one can audit it. That like a government, for example, this is like the usual thing. A state actor can't come in and just say, show me your financial records, right? Or they can't stop that, that's another discussion I'll get to in a second. But that's the big thing is there need.
I think another thing the state really wants is they want something that's not permissionless. That's one property that Bitcoin has out the gate that's an advantage over the banking system is it's permissionless.
Of course. Let me add just one other quick thing, and it goes back to the evolution and the usernames and everything, because from the discussion that I read in the comment section of that demo is that it's going to be kind of like Bitcoin. It's going to be anonymous. It's the privacy feature. The total privacy won't be for like a year. And when I hear a developer say it's going to be next year or a year, I always add another year to it. So I'm thinking 2 years before whatever Alex was talking about. I think we understand about you're going to be able to see what's going on, but you're not going to be able to know what's in in it, but you're going to be able to see it, but you won't be able to decipher it. It seems just like Bitcoin. You can't see the address. You don't know who's behind the addresses, basically, but you'll be able to see it moving from place to place.
Mm. Yeah. So here's the other idea on, and of course, Mark can jump in as eventually if we let him. I don't know. He's a little timeout zone here, also known as the bloody UK. But anyway, here's the point on. So obviously financial privacy is an absolute must. And the only problem with privacy that people come up with is not the problem with privacy, but the problem with everything that Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies came after it is based on, which is censorship resistance, that you can't come in and control it. No one control it, the whole decentralization thing. And so the problem is you can't turning off privacy is kind of the wrong thing. If you have a problem with Dash's privacy functions, you really have a problem with Dash not being PayPal, right? Not being something that you can just go centrally and shut down and audit or whatever like that. So it's kind of the wrong thing. I don't think people will, and that's why if Dash maintains optional privacy. Now, if Dash had always on type privacy, there would be a completely different discussion because there would be difficult to audit transactions at all. It'd be easy for fraud to happen, right? Now, but the way it is with optional privacy, turning it off, I don't think will placate a single person.
Well, the
Really,
regulators.
I don't think it'll placate anyone.
It's the
It'll
regulators.
placate the regulators. I don't think they'll even. I think it's just a temporary FUD phase going when regulators don't know the technology they're trying to regulate. But once they figure out that anyone can use cryptocurrency, that they can't stop that, then they'll just go after that part.
It doesn't seem like they're making a distinction between like a Monero always on and a Dash. They're just lumping everybody together and like you're banned. And I think it's just going to get worse.
Which to be honest, that is the amount of education on the crypto space that most people in the crypto space have. Most people just say, "Oh, I heard Dash was private," and it's just like that's it. That's where the thought process ends. I mean, I use private send probably 8 to 10 times a week now. Like I've started to use it, put stuff in, make, send out, just like it's a common practice right now. And now that my-wallet.org has a private send feature, I'm using it a whole lot more. In fact, I private sent a tip to someone just now, which is kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of my whole idea on the problem. This is like the slippery slope kind of thing. Obviously, some things like CoinFirm that helps bring up regulatory compliance for cryptocurrencies, or something like Node 40, which can track all your cryptocurrency usage for accounting purposes for taxes, including supports private send. So if you private send a bunch and you give them like you export your wallet, public keys, etc., then they can calculate taxes on your private send transactions too. Like all that is integral to integrating into what they call the real world, whether like it or love it, the one that's out there. But then when he starts making that it's not a choice, where it's like, well, now you can't have privacy or you can't have your identity secure with a technology like this. Argument for or against that is, I would posit that is against the entire value proposition of cryptocurrency, of a different money, is something that no one can control or censor. That's the only reason it has value beyond, oh, look how transparent it is. But part of that whole thing is, oh, look, you can't change the supply. You can't make a unilateral decision. You can't ban it in the country and just shut it down. You can't say you person are banned from using this. You can't. That's the entire point. And it's not just a should we do it or not. It's just at that point it loses its value. There's just no point in pursuing this anymore.
Yeah, well, if the choice is that y'all either turn off the private send feature or you don't get added to Coinbase, you're not able to operate in Japan, and then the U.S. puts some regulation is in that you're also not able to operate with any U.S. exchanges, that's going to kill the coin's value anyway. So there will be no digital cash. So I think a temporary measure,
short term at least, Yeah. But that's the thing is, that's one of the big problems with cryptocurrency is it became too speculative too quick, and so many people are looking at this on what's my money going to do, and not enough of how can using this technology make the world a better place.
But if nobody uses it, it's not going to make the world a better place. Yeah. I say we need to stealthily get in the door. No one's
going to use it if it doesn't work.
Well, I think we got to stealthily get in the door. We got so many other features, and it doesn't work right now. Private send doesn't work right now. It's bad. Yeah. I mean, it just is. Anybody who uses it knows it is, and it doesn't really work. And I think it could be improved. And I think if we had to shut it off temporarily, just so we could get listed and get big, and once we get too big to fail, they can almost not stop us. That's my reasoning behind it. If not, we're going to get cut off at the legs, and we're never going to go anywhere. I wish we were able to do it to where, yes, we could have whitelisted addresses, we could keep private send, we could work with CoinFirm and keep private send, and that would be the ultimate. That would be great. But if that's not the case, then yeah, it's going to be a good discussion within the community.
I think crypto's going to have. Well, I really hope I'm wrong on this, but I see a lot of fires being lit now. And there seems to be a trend. So recently we've seen the crypto ad ban go across all social media networks, right? Pretty much the predominant ones. But there was a tweet, I believe, that originated from Vitalik, Ethereum, saying basically, how would you feel if you knew child pornography was being used on your blockchain? And I didn't think much of it, but like was it yesterday we saw Pazer kind of got shut down in the US as under investigation where for laundering child pornography money and all sorts of things like this. And now I've seen Ken Bozak and some other YouTubers like Omar from the Cryptos News talking about it as well. Like, oh, well, I feel like governments could easily latch on to this as a kind of like attack vector to say like, oh, look, you know, it's like the Silk Road all over again where they're going to try and demonize cryptocurrency. And I've just seen this trend happen over the last week because it just keeps popping up. Yeah. And it just seems that a seed seems to be planted, and the people that don't believe in cryptocurrency or the naysayers seem to be latching onto it. But in terms of legislation and going after people, this could be an easy angle for people to go up, you know, after cryptocurrencies and demonize them. One last thing about Coinbase, because Brian mentioned Coinbase. Now, I can't promise this, so if you would like this, say yes in the chat. We have a Dash Force News writer, Todd. He's done some really great articles, typically on a Monday. They're really, really informative. I'm sure most of you here have read them. So to be added to Coinbase, you have to comply and fit the criteria of the GDAX framework, new asset criteria, right? You have to conform to that, and then it has to go up to Coinbase, big wigs, and then they make a decision on it. So I suggested to Todd about the GDAX framework. It's available in a PDF to actually go by section, comparing it to Dash and do perhaps a document on it, just so we can see how it fares, because there's always speculation about, which coin, you know, we always see Ripple all the time being suggested it's going to be added to Coinbase, but it's just always hot air. So it'll be actually be really good to have an informative report actually breaking down each section and seeing how Dash compares. And then that way we really know what areas in terms of people really want Coinbase. Now, I hear people this week talking about the Abra app, which I've not used myself, but lots of people are talking about the Abra app, saying that's going to replace Coinbase. We've heard about Robinhood. Has anyone used the Abra app yet? Because that's big news this week. Anyone? No. Abra? Abracadabra? Magic app?
I mean,
well, apparently it's Coinbase, but with all the fiat pairings, and I think it's got a whole portfolio of different cryptocurrencies, where with Coinbase you're restricted to 4: Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Ethereum. Where this one apparently it's like 0 trading fees as well, and it's an application. But the interesting thing is that with the app you get your private key as well, and it's all kept in Bitcoin. So if something goes wrong, you can easily take it out. I need to look into it. I think Ken Bozak's done a video on it recently. I need to scratch up, but that's the flavor of the week. And a lot of people are saying like Coinbase perhaps might not be where it's not where it's at anymore.
Well, Circle may be coming back as well. I loved Circle. Circle was awesome. One other thing I would say I support would be, that's been talked about, is the lobbying. I would love to be able to lobby, you know, Congress to say, hey, look, yes, we have CoinFirm, you know, we're in compliance. You can do these whitelisted addresses and hopefully keep private send. I would love to be able to, but if we can't, then if it means costing us, you know, Coinbase, Japan, and possibly American exchanges, I just don't see how we could survive that. I don't see how the coin could survive that.
Yeah, well, that's 2018 perspective, and I'm sorry if I get a little bit fired up talking about this stuff, but the entire point of this stuff was it was supposed to rattle existing power structures to deal with the unbanked, the people who can't have access to the financial system, the people like WikiLeaks who are censored, people like that. The whole point of this is that it can't be easily stopped or regulated.
Yeah.
And now we're tiny little kittens saying, "Oh, this exchange won't add us unless we compromise everything we're about." I think that's complete nonsense. And if private send ever gets removed from Dash, I mean, that's the day you don't see me anymore ever again. I'm gone. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, it works. Dash works at $10. I mean, it works at $10, and just let me know. Let me know so I can cash out before we go to $10.
Yeah, cash out of something. Y'all still use it.
Yeah, if y'all want to use it at $10, that's cool. I would rather wait. I would rather take it off if we have to. I don't want to, but if we have to, I would rather take it off, let my masternodes go to $10 million, and then put it back on and let the price drop, go up to 10,000 and let the price drop to $10. I'll cash out at 10,000, and then y'all can use it at $10 all day on the principals and everything. I'd totally support that.
I'm sensing a split here, Joshua.
Way to do that.
So
I
don't think you mean to say this, but it sounds like you're saying that it's pretty cool to set aside values to make lots of money and then pick the values up again. And I mean, if you want to take that further, I don't think you do, but taking that further looks like, starting, that we're talking about like low quality ICOs. We're talking about hype machines and BitConnect kind of stuff. You can get rich by setting your values aside temporarily. And you can say later, no, I'm going to re-embrace those values later once I've got the resources.
No, I don't think you have to set your values aside. I think people who are saying the values, you can operate anonymously with Dash without private send if you want to keep to these strict values. But if you want to interface with the banking system and everything else, you're throwing your own values out the door. You're already compromising your values. So if you want to do the strict interpretation of principles and values and everything, you can use Dash and Bitcoin anonymously now.
Dash does not interface with the banking system. Dash doesn't interface with any kind of regulation at all. Yeah. Users of Dash do. And the point is, a lot of us spend a good chunk of our time, energy, talent, and our life taking a bunch of risks to promote what we see to be revolutionary technology that can change the world. And if those of us have to interface with that world in order to get the job done, that's it's cost of doing business, right?
Yeah, compromises your principles.
The problem is if that's a temporary thing while moving whatever is the principle forward.
You're temporarily compromising your principle. Well, and your
one would be
both of them
apply Nike.
It's both ways. I think you get. I don't think there's any perfect solution.
It's weird though, because one of the main reason why you got into Darkcoin originally was because of the privacy. Yes or no, right? So, but for me as well. Okay, I feel like I'm on the sidelines here. I don't really want to take a position even because I feel like Dash is going through a new identity now. Because I bet you in 6 months' time or 12 months' time with Evolution, we're going to start seeing all these apps and stuff, all these social media ad bans now. People might start building social networks on Dash Evolution. So like people might look at, so we used to be a Dash-centric coin. Now we're talking about like last year being a payment solution. And now we're talking about platform economy, everything else. So like, I think the whole identity that goes with Dash is going through a complete paradigm shift now. Like people are looking at a completely different light. I'm still trying to get my head around Evolution. I'm literally, I can't wait for Chuck and Joshua to get out the demo 2 video, hopefully 3 to 4 weeks time, to see the next installment. And but like, I think the privacy thing, you know what? I'd be interested to see the Mastodon owners vote on that. I don't know if it would ever go that way. It'll be interesting to see where people's values lie. I think Joshua's right. It's just like, where do they?
Yeah,
because you're
also. Here's the other thing. This is one of those reasons why Mastodon owners can vote on stuff, but don't have direct control. They have direct control over the purse, and they can show values things. But for example, this is one of those cases where I'm really glad Mastodon owners cannot tell the core team what to code, because the core team can say, you know what, that's bullshit. We're not going to do it. You're going to have to fire us. Sorry.
Yeah. We can.
And then at that point, it's going to be, is it worth it firing the core team over this one stupid little thing to pump the coin briefly? And that's one other thing with there's been a lot of really terrible ideas that have come from greed lately, and this is a jerk about it. So just bear with. If you don't like me, if you're not gonna like me after this, you already didn't like me before. But there have been a bunch of things that have floated through the community lately that far too many masternodes have thought about. Stuff like, well, why can't we hype what we got right now more? Why can't we get more people involved in the big pump of last year? Why can't we inflate the Dash supply by hundreds of times so people can buy little like a penny stock tokens just like the rest of them? Why can't we add an encrypted privacy thing? Not because the current privacy thing isn't working out, but just because it sounds cool and sexier. What about SegWit? When's Dash getting SegWit so we can pump all these kind of horrendous ideas just under the premise of let's pump this coin? And it's like temporary greed, and I don't buy any of it. And the problem is there's always the cost-benefit analysis. Promote these kinds of things for temporary gain, you lose out on long-term gains. And one thing is, does Dash enjoy all the tireless, hardworking idealists that put their life away to just and take great risks in order to push this forward? And if they don't value them, they can lose them at any time. Like, you can just say, we want AML KYC coin because it's going to make us rich, and then all the talent pushing Dash forward is going to be gone. That's a tough to make. Well, and we might pump the coin to the sky for a month or so, but then long term, no one really values. They're all going to be working on some project that really revolutionizes the way human beings interact with each other, and that's where the development talent is going to be.
Yeah. Well, one reason I would say I did kind of support something like Zcash did, to where you kept private SIM, but you also had the encrypted technology. And it wasn't greedy on my part. It's just I wanted something that worked, because I actually use private SIM and it doesn't work very well. Another thing you would destroy if you want to dig your heels in and go to $10 per Dash, you're going to destroy the DAO. You're going to destroy the governance model. There's not going to be any money. So you're just going to destroy everything. It won't work. My idea is to get our foot in the door, get so big in the next couple of years that we can't be shut down. Because right now we can be shut down. If we keep that feature and all the governments and everybody says, no, you can't use it on any exchange and anything else, the coin's just going to die. However, if we get so big in a couple of years from now that they can't stop us, then we can flip the privacy features on. That's what I would do. I definitely want to keep the privacy features, but it may have to temporarily, if it doesn't work right now.
Brian, I disagree that we would be small if we hung on to privacy in the face of resistance. How much do you think the market cap is of a coin that gets used exclusively in countries who are ruining their currency? Like, if we continue to take off in Venezuela and in Zimbabwe and in these other countries that are destroying their currency, and the speculators in the US just drop it, I think the value still has higher to go from where it is now if it gets that kind of usage. If any nation starts to get major usage of any crypto, that crypto is going to go bananas.
I don't see it all working and the price staying the way it is and being able to expand in Venezuela and being able to expand in Africa when the price goes down to $10. And how are people, if people in America can't buy the coin because it's banned from all the exchanges, and they can't buy it in Australia, and they can't buy it in Britain, and they can't buy it anywhere except for these third world countries basically that have not their systems are broken. I don't see how that's going to make us huge. I just don't.
How did Bitcoin happen before exchanges? Like, this is not. Because I've never used an exchange in my life. True story. I just never touched them. I've only ever bought peer-to-peer, received for payment, used it as money, right? This is the entire goddamn point of cryptocurrency, is that you don't need these institutions. It's becoming this bank framework, and that is an inherent vulnerability in the cryptocurrency ecosystem today, that if all these exchanges were to boot them all, if everything went down, if everything went banned, there would be a rough time restarting right now. And I think we should go in the opposite direction, not running into more problems. There's decentralized exchanges, peer-to-peer exchanges like BISC, for example, which stuff like that should be worked on to where it will work smoother so that you don't need any permission to buy and sell this kind of thing. More people should be buying and selling goods with it. There should be more people on Open Bazaar and other things like that. This is the way the world should grow, and it's like all temporary versus long term. And the bigger problem is how technically difficult would it be to just kind of turn off private send? First off, I don't think it's possible to just just to do a switch. It doesn't work. But also, if you can do that just by the act of doing it completely erases Dash's value proposition of why do we care if this can just be turned on off at a whim.
Well, it's up to the master nodes. It's up to the master nodes that they would have to vote on it. And I would never say that we should always keep it off. But if we have to turn it off temporarily and able to grow to mass adoption to where they cannot stop us, and then flip it on and be like, hey, fuck you, that's what we should do.
Wow, I really didn't think this podcast was going to go this route with the.
I told you.
We managed not to talk about the logo. That's a good thing. I just want to go over to the live chat because that's been pretty active and there's been some really great comments. So I'd just like to give a shout out to someone. So first up is DJ Crypto, and he said, "Would core devs even agree to turn private send off?" Victor K says, "Without the privacy concept, could you still call it digital cash? Privacy to me seems to be an integral part of Dash." Stephen Hill says Dash will become more valuable if it retains its privacy features and becomes a rare type of coin that people can use without the government's consent. And then he follows that up by saying, "Let's not ask the regulators for permission to exist. They can take a jump." So
I feel like Roger Ver here because I'm the only one that actually uses private send. But probably people who are talking probably don't even use it and they don't know how broken it is. And if it's turned off for a year until they fix it,
every single day without problems.
Yeah, well, you're not sending multiple transactions.
Yeah. Have you used Monero? Have you used Zcash? Those things are a nightmare to use. Dash has got probably the easiest privacy. Yeah, it's probably got the easiest privacy to use. And I've paid for my VPN. I paid for my co-working space. I paid for Bitcart. I paid for all of them and had zero issue.
Private send used to work for me. That's when I was building another masternode, and I had hundreds of Dash, and there was plenty of denominations able to send. But then when I built that masternode, and all those hundreds of Dash went into a masternode, and all I had to operate from was the budget from Dash Force, then the denomination issues kicked in, and I could only send 3 at a time because there wasn't such a big liquidity pool of denominations to send from. And so I ran into problems. And the last couple of months, I've had those problems. So you have to have at least 4 times, I would say, the amount of Dash you need to have private send worked. And Joel, I'm sure you do. That's why you haven't ran into those problems. But if you only, if you needed 50 Dash or whatever, I don't know how you're not running into denomination errors. It's a mathematical probability
that it's going to happen. The problem is, and this is an interesting instructive thing on using private send, and that is a weakness of private send is you have to know how to use it. And in the future, hopefully that'll be better. But first off, when you take a Coinbase transaction that comes right off, it's like one input. And you put that in and you say private send it, it'll break it up into denominations, the largest being, I guess, 1 Dash. So if you say you take 100 Dash, there'll be like 50 things of 1 Dash. There'll be a whole bunch of 0.1, a whole bunch of whatever. And so after you spend that a little bit, you have a bunch of big chunks in there, still like the 1 Dash, 1 Dash, 1 Dash, 1 Dash inputs. Yeah. And when you try to send those out, then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm going to burn half a Dash just trying to send it. Private send is supposed to work is by receiving constant transactions into the wallet over time and sending them out constantly over time. Is this big? Not this big. Airdrop in a single input, mix it, and then all of a sudden it just works. So that's going to be one thing that hopefully whatever evolution fixes with that is going to make it a lot more automated that you can do that. But basically, it's pretty easy to just mix it and then just over time keep on taking larger input transactions and actually manually selecting the inputs, sending them back to the wallet and just turning that over and over.
Oh, that sounds really easy. That sounds, I don't know. Yeah. It's whenever I get the payments, I like to send them out. And if I'm only able to send 3 or 4 out, and then I have to mix, and it takes another sometimes 24 hours to mix, and then I have to send 3 more people and then mix again and send to 3 more people. It just doesn't, it's just not ready for prime time.
Yeah. So, interesting. This is an interesting usage right here, right? So sometimes I've sent like one big input in and then just whatever. But what has always worked out really well has been you just have it running. And then, for example, if you get, I used to have a masternode share. It would give me like a few bucks every week or so. And then I just take that and I just send that straight into the mixer. And then it just mix, and I'd send some out here, some out there, and that constant in out over time really works pretty well.
Yeah, over time it works. But if you're spending it all, I don't think you're spending 3 private send or more than 3 private send transactions in a row in your life. I don't know how you're like, if you're going to the coffee shop, I don't think you're spending more than 3. You may spend 1 or 2, and then in the background it's continuing to mix, and then you may spend some the next day. It works fine. But
I
if you're
think,
doing
I
I
like,
think
instant
you guys are
right?
kind of stuck in a loop right now. Joel has an experience with private send that generally works because of the way he's using it,
right,
and Brian has an experience with private send that generally doesn't work because of the way he's using it. And it's not like either of you is using it right or wrong. It's just this is a feature, and in some use cases, it kind of falls down. Brian is like, I mean, I don't think that we're trying to deny that. Brian is having this experience. It's repeatable, it's consistent, and private send isn't meeting his needs. Private send needs to be improved. But I don't think that that's necessarily enough justification to push everyone over the edge of private send isn't good enough for everyone to use. If a lot of people use it the way Brian does, maybe more people will feel that way. But
in the real world, yeah, I think if you have companies trying to use this, no. If you're doing little transactions here and there, then yeah, I could see how that could work. If it's constantly mixing, it's still not optimal. I think it could be optimized.
So here's the thing: instant send doesn't work well either.
Right.
And here's the experience I ran into is because I tried to instant send a whole bunch of transactions in a row, and then it stopped working. And the reason for that is I had the balance from a Coinbase transaction. So it was just like one input or one or two inputs in my wallet. And then every time I wanted to instant send, it would, of course, break up that input and change address. I get change back. And so what happens, you need 5 confirmations on chain to send an instant send transaction. So this was confirmed. Every single time I sent it, it would break it up and send unconfirmed stuff back. So I instant sent to 2 people in a row or something. Then the third one, it'd be like, nope, can't. And I'd be like, oh, crap. I don't know why that is. And then it just over time. Now, however, if I had taken that whatever balance, if I had taken that in a few different random transactions, I would not have run into that problem with instant send. And so it seems like instant send and private send are very similar in the challenges they face right now with constant use. So that's something to think about for developers in making Evolution's wallets move quicker is some kind of an automatic function, because if you ever watch the inputs when you private send, it's pretty easy to understand how it works. Every time you get, say, a new transaction in that hasn't been mixed, then that gets broken up into inputs. And so there might be a little function where it breaks up your transactions into smaller inputs based on the percentage of like how big your wallet is. So say if you have 5 Dash in a wallet, it breaks it all up into inputs automatically, sort of like private send. Yeah. And then what happens if you spend all the smaller inputs, and so then you only have 2 Dash left, but it's in 2 inputs of 1 Dash each, and you try to send someone like a small amount of that, then it can't do it because you can't have to break it up or whatever. And so something that would, for example, and this, hopefully Josh is not looking at me like this moron, what the hell is he talking about? But if your balance gets broken up into inputs related to what your balance is. So if you have only 1 Dash in your wallet, there's no way you have 1 Dash in that has to be broken up into smaller pieces. But if you have 50 Dash, then you can have plenty of 1 Dash inputs. So something that automatically does that back end without showing anyone, that would be cool.
Can I just refer to a comment that's just been posted in the live Q&A by Stephen Hill? Wow, newbies will never understand this. Could your grandmother do this? But I mean,
now here's the thing. Yes, your grandmother could do this in the future when this is all back end, and all she has to do is receive and send. But in all this kind of stuff is usually the problem. What we're running into is this interim phase where we're not messing with the input. I mean, I am, but no one else really is messing with the inputs on a daily basis. But we're still not at full mass adoption stages yet. And so we still have that rough user experience without us being used to doing it on our own. So in the interim, it's kind of shitty, but
no, it's interesting because I never have problems with instant send, but your use case of instant send you do. And I saw feed bands had the same thing. So for me, instant send works. For most people, it works just fine. It's when you try to get up and scale it and do larger things that it has problems. And I think you could send next time people do this instant send thing where they're giving away a bunch, they could send it. It'd be a pain in the ass, but maybe they could do a script or something to send it to a bunch of different addresses, 100 different addresses, so you don't have that change confirming issue with instant send. That's one solution. I don't know how easy it would be or not.
So Brian, like where did this all spawn from? Was this over the last few days? Have you discussed this with any other masternode owners? What's really prompted this? I saw the article Japan about the whitelist, but with regards to turn off private send, because you've given some very passionate speeches in this podcast. I didn't really think this podcast was going to go in that direction.
I told you it would. I told you before it started.
It was going to be good.
Yeah,
Yep.
I thought we
because I've thought about it, and I saw what people have said in the Masternode only channel, and there's a split. There's a split between people about what we should do, and a lot of people. I just wanted to make my case clear about why I think that if we have to, we have to, but I don't think we should ever permanently turn it off. I just want to get us to a mass adoption level to where they can't stop us, because right now they can stop us and they can shut us down from all the exchanges, any of the privacy coins. They can ban us from Japan, which they've already done, and then you can't use it like everybody wants to use. It's just not going to be used and
So Brian, let me actually respond to that a second time, but it's going to be a lot more in line with what you're saying. Yeah, my gut reaction that's very strong, and I'm very glad I got that out as well, is that absolutely would never, ever compromise privacy, period. Now, beyond that, what do compliance with exchanges in order to get mass adoption is a great thing. The disagreement is sort of, do we change the protocol level to comply with exchanges? I would say absolutely not, but there is another way of getting that same thing. There is another way of saying, like, all right, why don't we, for one thing, we just show what like private send transactions look like. First off, with AML KYC requirements of exchanges, you can't deposit Dash without that sort of a thing, right? And Coinbase has a wallet, right? Just a Bitcoin wallet as well, that will not let you, they block your Bitcoin transactions if you try to send it to a gambling site, for example, which is against their terms. So they do have that whole thing. However, it's not Bitcoin that's changed, it's Coinbase that has changed, right? It's so there could be something like that. And what I was thinking about is like restricted use in different countries. Obviously, this goes to my understanding of what evolution can do. And if I'm completely full of crap, then Josh will tell me, and he'll just, or you can just start shaking your head and I'll just see it and stop talking. But there might be able to make a customized wallet interface, like any number of dApps that anyone could develop. You can make your own custom wallet. You can make AML KYC wallet that will not send funds until you plug in your driver's license or whatever other identifier into it. That, of course, that's not going to be the main evolution wallet, but you could have a wallet, and then you would have to show that if you're using Dash in a certain country, you'd have to be like, this is AML KYC thing. That's the kind of thing that will really mainstream Dash. The whole private send thing, I think, is a complete misunderstanding of how the technology actually works. And if they understood the technology and how it works, they would not want to turn off private send. What they'd want to do is just make the whole coin AML KYC compliant by default. And so that's kind of the thing to attack, because people don't want traceable transactions, not even banks, which is why banks don't allow you to trace that. But anyway, there's a little bit of a cut. If services say, no, we only accept this kind of a thing, this kind of a Dash wallet, sorry, or we will only send to this, or the App Store will only have Dash wallets that notification or whatever. However, that's the Trojan horse kind of thing that Brian was talking about. And just turning off private send, as it were, I'm pretty sure it'd be a very messy thing, and it would be something to be easy to, it'd pretty much be the wrong approach to that exact same outcome. But I do agree with the outcome of this should be something that the average person can use. And in order for the average person to use it, all the people who have power over the average user should be satisfied in some kind of a way. And so I guess that's like regulatory compliance. No one cares about Bitcoin being anonymous, or no one seems to.
Yeah,
but it's just all Dash, Zcash, Monero. They're these dark privacy coins, and that's the problem with that's the problem with the limited understanding in the space. And you know, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes, but it's also interesting to note that these kinds of things, like which exchanges are the big ones to go on, do exchanges matter at all? How about making your ads compliant for Google and Twitter and stuff like that? A lot of that is talking about something that is the topic of the day today.
Yeah.
Sometimes there might be a thing where exchanges becomes too easily honeypotted, and then people stop using them within a year or two. People just kind of move away from what we call exchanges, and they start moving away to more decentralized or peer-to-peer things, especially if, I mean, what exchanges do people buy dollars from?
Mm.
They don't really. They just kind of
exchange currency exchange holiday stuff. But I agree.
Yeah.
But it's a feature, right? I almost feel like this conversation might be obsolete. I'm channeling my inner Chuck, and I'm hearing Chuck's voice in my head saying, "All value is belief.
All value is belief."
And people
never
value
shuts up about
different
that. Never.
things. So, like, why does no one? So who has a Windows phone here? No. Why don't you have a Windows phone?
Same reason I don't have a Zune.
Because the most people, if you ask most people, especially the younger generation, they'll tell you because they don't have the same amount of apps available on as Apple and Android, right? So I think when evolution comes about, you're going to have like all kinds of apps and stuff on there, services where people are going to value different things. You're going to have taxi services might build things on there, all kinds of things. So people are going to look at Dash in so many different ones. So it's not just like the key features like instant send and private send. They're going to be looking at it as kind of like shops being built on it. Maybe even advertising networks might even utilize that. You could do so much with it. So I think people are going to be looking at things in a whole different light. And one last thing, going to regurgitate a tweet that I said, but because I think it really hits the nail on the head what you've just been talking about, is that censorship doesn't stop revolutions, it inspires them. So I think even though if the exchanges are taking that stance, I believe in the free market. And if people don't understand I think a lot of people get scared by the privacy term, these privacy-centric coins, because they've been demonized so much in the media where people just associate them with the darknet markets and nefarious things. But really, it's just all it is for people that are watching that don't know. I'm just get a couple of notes that are the same. Dash is digital cash. So I've got two 20 euro things here. That's all it is. That's all it is. What's so bad about that? Right? If I can do that, now there's a war on cash in the UK. They want to ban it, but that's the thing. If I can go in a coffee shop, I get that 20. I don't need to know its history. It's the same thing. Now I know we've talked about AML and KYC and stuff, but the problem's on their side, not on ours. The thing is, how do we communicate that and convey it in a way to get wide understanding to show that it's not an issue and it's actually the solution that people should want, not want to filter that out.
Let me reiterate my point just finally, in that my first choice would be to, if it looks like Japan's going to ban any anonymous coins. They're not going to look at always on, always off. They're just going to, if it's they're just going to hit it with the hammer. It doesn't matter. Coinbase may or may not do the same thing. U.S. regulators may or may not do the same thing. So the first choice would obviously be to get these whitelisted addresses that people have talked about in the Masternode only channel, or work with CoinFirm. So we can be in compliance without having to shut off the private send feature. However, the people who are saying, like Joel, that that if it's shut off and then you're not, well, I hope you stick with us through evolution, because that feature is going to be shut off. From what I understand, it's going to be shut off, at least for a year, according to Alex, and it's not going to be private as far as how the evolution, the usernames work.
Which specific feature? Because
this is a username. I'm not technical. I don't know. I just know what Alex had written in there, and people were complaining about. They're like, "Hey, this is not private," and Alex is like, "That's true, but in a year or whatever, we plan to have it private." So I think it's just going to operate just like Bitcoin, and where you're going to be able to see it, you're just not going to be able to attach. Technically, though, you will have usernames attached to it, so you probably won't want to use your full name because it will be not private. So you got to probably, and I guess my question for Joel would be that you're willing to let Dash go to $10 and keep private send if the U.S. decides that they're going to say, yeah, you can't trade on any exchange if you have any privacy features. You're okay with it going to $10. You're happy with that? You would go for that?
Well, let me say this. Yes, absolutely. I was happy because I started with Dash when it was $10. Like, I just like, it's like, sweet, I can get closer to an actual masternode now. That would actually be good for me personally.
Well, your masternode would be useless though. I mean, your governance would be $10. I mean, it's not going to be anything. I mean, it wouldn't be useless.
Just
you're going to have
Litecoin doesn't have governance.
You'll be able to fund.
Doing all right.
You'll be able to fund the core team, but everybody else.
Yeah, that's good.
And the whole DAO and everything, it'll
well, we were being funded when there was $10 DAO, but only $10 Dash. But no, I'm fine with that. But
I was the price we were
thing
much smaller.
That actually, most people aren't. For one thing, it's probably not going to be that dramatic anyway. But most people will probably disagree with me. In which case, I'd probably keep using Dash in certain cases for money, and I'd diversify half into something like Zcash and just use that as much as possible. So that's honestly what would happen in that case. If there was no privacy in Dash, I would have to have something else too.
Well, what are you going to do about this evolution with the usernames and stuff, and them being able to see it?
I don't exactly know what that means.
Take away base features from base Dash.
Say that again.
So that's the thing.
Evolution doesn't take away from the existing Dash features.
Yeah, you can still use.
It's not like we're turning off the ability to use addresses.
But if you use your name, it doesn't. It shows up right on the blockchain. You're able to see that.
If I use onename.io, it's the same thing. Like, if you build something that kind of goes on top of the Foundation service, like I can still send private send transactions not using my username.
Yeah.
What does BTCP mean? DJ Crypto's just put it in. BTCP. I've not seen that before.
By the crash privacy.
Yeah.
Bums talking about.
I think Bitcoin maybe.
Okay.
BTC, Bitcoin, private, Bitcoin private. Sorry, of course it is. Sorry, I didn't know that was a ticker for it.
Nah, screw that. I'm all about the Dogecoin dark.
We need to have Alex on next week, and so he can explain more about what they were talking about in the comment section about how it's not private and that it will be in a year. I would
love to have Alex on. I really rate Alex.
Stephen Hill in the comments just said, I'm going to use a 28 random character username.
Yeah. I mean, I could.
And let me just say, one of the complaints was that, it'll be a year. And the person said, well, I don't want to wait a year. Then I'm going to have to redo all my contacts and everything else. My thought to that was that, well, there's going to be a DApp for that. That it may not be private for a year, but then after a year, there'll be some kind of a DApp that anonymizes everything and gets all your contacts, so you don't have to switch usernames.
Yeah, or imagine this, right? There might be a way of switching usernames, and so what happens if you buy the one you want and you buy the one that you kind of like don't care about, and then over at the end of whenever you just literally buy the other username from yourself. Just say, hey, I got the one I was looking for. And then there you go. You're just sitting atop that.
Yeah, they'll probably be able to click a button at that point and it would change over your contacts. That was one of the complaints that they had about that, they didn't want to wait a year because it's going to screw up their contacts. I'm sure there'll be something developed that'll make it easy to do.
Let's do a quick poll in the live chat. So if you agree with Brian and we should turn off private send so we can hopefully feature on more exchanges, type Brian in the live chat.
No, that's not my position.
Wait. I just want to hear. I just want to hear what the people
do.
Or if you're like Joel and you think that there should be no compromise.
Yeah, that's not my position. That's not my position, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, for short term. If you've been watching, you've heard both sides of it. So if you're with Brian, type Brian. If you're with Joel, type Joel. I'm just curious to gauge what the sentiment is just from our viewers watching. So here we go. Some people say Mark. I'm on the fence. I don't have a position right now. I'm curious to know what you think, right? Okay, it's looking level at the moment with some people on the fence. It's curious. I think it's really splitting people.
It's a great debate. I love it. I'm ready for the masternodes to vote on it. We'll have to see what happens with the U.S. I mean, if the U.S. says Dash cannot be added to any exchanges, I think anybody typing Joel is going to start typing Brian. They're gonna realize real quick what's at stake here. And it doesn't matter what people say, anyways. The masternodes are who matters.
There's actually a lot of Bryans coming in with a cheeky Evan as well. Wow, I'm actually a little bit surprised by that.
Yes.
Okay, well there are Joels in there as well.
All right, let's wrap it up. We're going over time.
This
to be continued. To be continued.
Wow. I don't really think we utilized Joshua's perhaps as well as we should have in this podcast. However, I'm very grateful.
We started to, and then we started yelling about self. But yeah,
Joel, let me just say this: Joel is a globalist.
Oh God, here we go.
A globalist.
This is going to get nasty.
I do have Federal Reserve on my shirt in a way.
Oh yeah, see, I told you that proves my
Illuminati confirmed.
Illuminati confirmed.
God, from one Mason to another. So people, Joshua, will you join us in the after party?
I can't. I have to throw some board games in a bag and get ready to head out to a game night and dinner.
Okay,
Sounds
right.
Like
Okay. Well, I don't have a social
Did you
life.
get any of
so
that
I'll
when
be
we
there.
were there in Portsmouth? I don't remember. Did you get something there?
Did I get? Oh yeah, I got a couple of D&D books. My wife just listened to a D&D podcast called The Adventure Zone, and it sounded like so much fun. She's like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I'll throw a character together. So I was like, well, let me buy $100 worth of books to
Of course.
ease you in.
Now, here's the last poll of the day on the Three Amigos. Which Dungeons and Dragons version was your favorite? Just comment the number. Version 1 through, I guess, 5, is it now?
0. I don't know. That's some nerd stuff, you nerds. I don't know.
0's pretty good, actually.
I think I've only played Dungeons and Dragons on an actual computer game. I've never actually played the board game.
Oh, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale. Which one was that? Morrowind. Not Morrowind.
I'm going to show my age.
What was
but I used to have an Amiga and Atari ST.
Oh, they had
UK
D&D
people know what
games on
I'm
that?
about. Old school.
Nice.
Yeah.
But
what was that? Yeah, I was a big fan of Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. Those are good ones. Do you remember that? You ever play those, Joshua?
I played Neverwinter Nights, which, by the way, they're remastering.
That was the one I was thinking about. That was 3rd edition, right? 3rd edition rules.
Yeah.
All right, so now we've already nerded the whole world out. I think it's time to go away and slink into the dark hole from whence we came.
yes. Thank you for watching episode 44. Wow, what a podcast. This is
a heck of an episode.
It's going to be an interesting week in the Dash Force house next week, I can tell you that. So
Good thing there's a few thousand miles between each of us, because otherwise I'd do a throwdown. I'd be like, you know what?
It's going to go full out Anchorman here.
It's funny because also go into it gets more exciting in the after parties. There was a couple times when I was shouting at Paragon and swearing at him and stuff too, a few times. And so if you want that kind of an action, if you want to get on that, he still talks to me somehow. But if you want to get on that action, dashchat.org, get into the Dash Nation Slack, old school here, Discord, and then just ask around about where's the after party. And if no one answers you, you might not be cool enough to get in.
Aww.
But you should can.
Yep. Only 10 spaces, including us. So first come, first serve. So you better be quick. Dashchat.org. Make sure you get in there.
And it is a cool thing because people pop in and out over the course of like 6 or so hours sometimes. And it doesn't just end. It only ends when everyone's like, right, I'm going to get to bed. It's like 3 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
So until that happens, there's still something going.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yes, thanks, Joshua, man. The first part of the podcast was very informative. We'll have to get you on again.
All of this,
hopefully, we'll
this
have
was
Alex
very
on.
interesting.
Yeah,
I'm pretty much
why we
always
don't
up for these things.
Yeah, this is why we don't script this thing, because it should go where it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
And thank you to everyone for being so busy in the live chat. Very, very active today, which is great. I hope that continues. So
you know why? Because it was paying people.
Yes.
Joe has an unfair advantage. He's like tipping people. Of course, they're going to vote for him.
Oh, hey, my cat says hi. By the way.
My-wallet.org you can get a little web wallet interface going there, and you can tip to Twitter handles, to email addresses, to Reddit addresses, to Dash Nation Discord usernames, and you can even use instant send and private send. You can private send tip someone, like you just see some random person a tip, and then it comes from some completely obfuscated address, and it's welcome to the future. This is the future that what I wonder if I'm going to private send a Dash tip to @RealDonaldTrump. How about that?
Interesting. Yeah, why not? Why not? Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and maybe next week, just maybe, we might talk about the logo, just to trigger people in the live chat.
On that, it's it's everything we need, and I am pretty sure. Yeah, it's going to be everything we need. The new logo is fantastic, and we'll vote on, and they'll be easily confirmed. All right, stay dashy.
Okay. See you later, folks. Have a great weekend. Take care.